So hey Adarsh, thanks for joining in. Welcome, and congratulations for qualifying through the ZCO 2025. I guess.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's been a pleasure, having you in WiByte and seeing you grow through this journey. And really, I thought this is something that may be interesting to a lot of our students. So I thought we will just have a short conversation with you and just try to, hear from you how you have been preparing. Any tips that you might have and so on and so forth, right? So maybe
yeah.
just get me started. How did you, let's sort of give me a perspective on, let's say, how did you get interested in something like computing, programming, and
Computing,
then, and let's say
computing was
ZCO?
always interesting, but my main interest was making games. Especially first Scratch games was very interesting. And then Python also, yes, you can make games in it. So when you're making games, you have to know how to code. That's why I did Unity and Python and Scratch. So ZCO is also like that. It's like solving problems in a game-like fashion.
Nice. So how did you specifically prepare for ZCO, or was it just like a part of the journey that it just happened?
ZCO, the first time I did it, I didn't prepare a lot. I
Okay.
got I think 2 marks from getting into the second round. The second time I actually prepared for a few months, and then eventually I got in the second round.
I see.
As
So
for preparing, I did
yeah.
some practice problems and previous past year question papers and all such
Okay.
things.
Okay. So what kind of problems are these? I mean, you said kind of like programming problems in kind of like games, but not exactly games, right? I think they're a bit
Yeah,
more analytical in
they're
nature. Yeah.
very logical, like algorithmic problems.
Okay.
They give you an input, and
Yeah.
you're supposed to get an output from it.
Okay. Like, can you give an
And then
example to make it, let's say, maybe some real problem that you encountered?
let's say there was this one problem recently I was doing. It's called smartphone.
Okay.
They give five customers and their budget. You have to price the smartphone in such a way that you can get maximum profit.
Ah,
So if you put the budget at the correct place, you can get more people to buy it and pay more money, and so you can get maximum profit out of it.
very interesting. So some algorithm with a purpose, let's say, with a not just completely
Yes.
abstract with numbers,
Yeah.
but with a purpose. I mean, kind of like what I was trying to, or we have been trying to do with shopping cart, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do I give a discount so that people get attracted to it, right? So in
Hmm.
some sense, that's sort of okay. So did you how did you practice for this? Just try solving problem, or did you learn some new algorithms on the way, or
Um,
something like that? Yeah.
I first directly went into solving it. First the easy
Okay.
questions, then the more difficult questions. I did it directly in Python. I didn't do any major planning before that. So best way to do it is just try.
Sure. Yeah. And how do you know that you're on, like, do they give you sample questions and so on? Or
There's these two websites which the ZCO people lately recommended. There's Code Chef and
right,
Code Drills.
code drills.
Those
Yeah.
two will give you some questions for practice.
Okay.
And there are
Yeah.
many other questions on that app also.
I see. So I mean, I remember seeing this on the website, this code drills as well as code chef. So
Yeah.
is this a specific, let's say, app or something that they have where this test is a very good?
It's a website where it's not only for ZCO, it's for all kinds of applications, mainly coding,
Okay.
for job interviews, job resumes, all that stuff. ZCO is another part. ZCO
Sure.
is taken place in code drills. So you write the code there and submit it over there.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So you would practice on that and,
Yeah,
get some
practice
feedback
there.
as well
Yeah,
as
yeah.
to if you're doing well. And is this time, like you get a certain amount of time to solve this probably? Or
For the main exam, you have 3 hours.
okay. And
No,
how many
yeah, three
problems do
hours to
you?
solve it. But when I do it, I just take my time and do it.
Okay. So
Properly
you kind of
optimized code.
got it. So you kind of like treat this like I would say like a puzzle, maybe,
Yeah,
right? And you kind of enjoy the journey of thinking logically
yeah,
and structuring a solution, coming up with something nice and which, let's say, that's
yeah,
kind of now in terms of, let's say, concepts of, say, Python, right? So I mean, first round is all in Python, right? So what are the
yeah.
did you find like anything completely different from, let's say, regular Python that we've been using, or
See,
some new
in
modules,
the
something? Yeah.
competition, the most important part of Python is the lists and how to
Hmm.
work with lists.
Sure.
That's extremely important.
Yeah.
And then there's the for loops, while
Yeah.
loops,
Yeah.
and the different data types.
Hmm.
You have to know all the data types to like completely know the throughout the exam.
Right. Yeah. I
The
mean,
the
that's not
lists and all are also very important because most of the problems are based on lists.
right.
There are multiple test cases. You have to store each test case in one instance.
Mm. Yeah.
Loops also are equally important.
Sure. No, so makes sense. I mean, that kind of aligns with what we also think. That's why we emphasize so much on lists, right? Because lists
Mm.
are fundamentally important, no matter what you're programming, right? They just end up being that way, right? You just realize
Yeah.
that that's the most logical structure to go with, right? And then Python lists are flexible. You can append, you can
Yes.
remove items, you can do so many things with that, right? So nice. And then again, of course, loops, and so that way Python is nice, right? For loop is very, very versatile,
Yes. Yes.
right? Just
Compared to
does.
C++, Python is much easier.
I would think so, right? So yeah. So you mentioned this. I was going to go there, right? Now next round is in C++. And how are you preparing for that? Are you like?
C++, I had watched a 10-hour course on it throughout multiple days.
Yeah.
And I also have two C++ books, one
Okay.
regular C++ and one standard template library book.
Okay. So
And
you
then,
practice problems from there.
yeah, I practice the learning and all that, and problems, the same problems for the previous ZCO. Same problems, just do it in C++.
C++. Okay. So more like I mean, the thought process to a large extent remains the same.
Yes, yes.
The let's say approach of breaking down the problem,
Yeah.
approaching it in logical manner. However, now with C++, obviously syntax is different, number one, and number two, the language imposes a bit more, let's say, upfront discipline, right? I mean, Python being dynamically typed, I think sometimes we take it a little bit because we can define variables anywhere, change the data type, and so on, right? So C++, I think. How is your yeah? Go ahead. Yeah.
C++ is also very efficient. It's very fast compared to Python.
Definitely.
Since it's very strict, can be very fast.
Definitely.
So it does the Python code in like half the amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, it probably even it depends on the code. In fact, could be even more. Half is a number, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it's so much more closer to the hardware, right? So you're having to precisely define everything upfront, and then you obviously get the benefit for that. So it's like runs much more efficiently, right? It's just that much more precisely defined, right? Yeah. But have you been learning about things like pointers and stuff? Or
yeah, pointers and all, I've learned it. But pointers is not so important in this sort of question.
Okay. It's more logic is what I'm kind of hearing from you.
Yeah, this is more logic, like going through loops, applying different algorithms, functions, and that sort of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Okay, and let me just so if somebody were to start, so WiByte students very well, our curriculum, and you have been with WiByte for a long time, right? So we do emphasize, in a fun manner, obviously, a wide variety of concepts as well as the depth, right? So we give you opportunity to think, right? So if if there was a student in WiByte, and I know many students are interested to, let's say, explore this journey, right? So what is your advice to them, and how should they get about, let's say somebody's just starting to prepare for ZCO coming for this year. I mean, I think it's held towards the end of the year, right? October or sometime.
Yeah, usually it's towards the end of the year.
Right. So what would you advise for, let's say, your peers? How should they go about it? Anything specific in mind? Or
yeah, so they should first see the past year question papers and see what they're up against.
Sure.
Then they should first try solving some easy questions of the ZCO. Then actually go to the real tough questions and at least try solving them, even if they're not able to do it.
Right. And when you say, like, how do you know what question is easy, what is not so easy? Do they define that upfront? Or?
Usually, the first question is easiest and last question is toughest.
Okay. So usually they don't randomize that.
And in the website, there's a question rank, like 1,000 to 1,500. Like
got it.
The difficulty of the question.
Okay. So it's logical. You start simple, gain some confidence, gain some practice. Much needed practice, right? And what platforms would you use to code yourself? Did you have like VS Code or something?
Usually that website itself, you can code it inside there.
Interesting.
But for debugging and all, I use Replit and Visual Studios.
Okay. And most of the time, like what I'm hearing from you, is regular Python, not so much like extra modules and all that. Is that correct?
Not many extra
so
modules.
It's purely logic is what possibly they're testing, right? And
maybe sometimes import math, but very rarely.
Okay. So not so much. So again, there's math part of it, there's logic part of it, right? So So I think there looks, from what I'm hearing from you, it's logic.
Yes.
Which is again been our philosophy in WiByte. So because math is something we learn over time, so I don't want to bring trigonometry and stuff in that, but students do use it, especially let's say for the draw project and all. A lot of people do use those ideas. Adarsh, when you look back at this entire experience of, let's say, going through the ZCO preparation, and how do you think it has made you a better programmer, or what has it done to you, let's say?
Because of this ZCO, I obviously program a lot more compared to normal.
Sure.
So that obviously makes me a better programmer. Also, practicing different types of programs gives me more experience in different questions.
Right. Very nice answer, I would say. I mean, practice is everything, and this is creating the motivation to create the practice, to do the
Yeah,
practice. Of course, I mean, kudos to you to, to do that practice. And,
yeah.
motivation is just one part of it, right? But have you also learned some, like, have you done any, let's say, study on, let's say, algorithms, data structures to formally learn these algorithms? Many of those, let's say,
There is one book about algorithms, but I don't
Okay.
use it too much. I read some important algorithms like some location finding,
Mm-hmm.
the nearest sorting, and all those
Sure.
kind of stuff.
Sure.
But most it's just logical, which is formed on the spot in the
Got
question.
it. Got it. So it's a matter of then all the more practice becomes important because
Yeah,
how fluent you are with that way of thinking. I guess that's what they're testing. Right? So,
yes.
yeah. Very nice, Adarsh. So it's been like I said, it's been a pleasure seeing you grow. So what's your outlook for, let's say, beyond ZCO now? What are you planning? Say.
I don't know, many other competitions, maybe some Python and C++ competitions. I'll be
Yeah.
happy to join some Scratch competitions also as well.
Sure, sure, yeah. I mean, there are many going on, I guess, but yeah, finding what I liked about ZCO is that it's very logic intensive,
Yes.
and
Let's see, there's a lot of competition. It's all 12th graders, 11th graders, high
right,
schoolers.
right, yeah. So I think that's the hope at WiByte, right? We give you a foundation, and then this is kind of like a natural logical extension from there, right? Then go and apply. Obviously, practice is what it takes, right? So very nice, Adarsh. Been a pleasure, like I said, always to see you grow. And anything you want to, let's say, concluding remarks for our students or anybody else who's interested in computing, in ZCO in general, or programming? Anything you want to
Yeah.
add?
So the most important thing is you have to first try. Then only you know how good it is or how bad it is. So if you practice all this, you'll surely be able to do it, no matter how tough it is.
Very
Mainly the
nice.
ZCO is not such a difficult competition compared to the actual real competitions. You should be able to get through first round with little to no difficulty.
So matter of practice, right? So yeah, on that
Yeah.
note, I mean, do you see that the nature of problems changes between the first round and second round because you're moving from?
I practice some second round questions. They are definitely more difficult. And now to code them in C++ as well
So
will
that's
be
another
even more
level of
difficult.
difficulty, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely more practice required. Yeah. And once that leads us to the international version of this whole thing, right? That's what I kind of
Yeah.
figured out. Yeah. So very nice path to, let's say, look forward to, right? I mean, to work towards it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, this is open only to students who are in school, is what I understand. Is that correct?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
it's only a certain age group. I think there are people below 7th standard who are trying, but it's mostly in the age group of 10th to 12th standard.
Sure, that's what I kind of also figured out looking at the results and stuff, right? Yeah, very nice. So sweet, good, let's say perfect age for you, and keep going. Really, like I said, feel very proud to see you grow. I wish you all the very best. And before we wrap up, what I'll do is that I'll just show everybody and maybe remind you also of some of the work that you've done with WiByte. It'll be good for you to also see, right? So what I've done is that I've just picked up a few projects of yours. You can see this, your Tux of Math from a long time ago. And I'll tell you why I picked up this game. We marked it outstanding.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very, very well done. And amongst other things, this game is quite involved, right? Multiple lists moving
Yeah.
together, right? And so
It's a
on.
complex project.
Fairly complex project, right? And our class project uses 5 lists, and you have accomplished all that in 3 lists. And I keep telling everybody that the way you've done this laser shot is also quite unique. Let me just quickly, let's say, play this. So let's say that's 9. 4 plus 2 is 6, right? So very unique logic, and I think that's really stood out. You say, yeah. And of course, students get to see this because I showcase this to them as part of the our class, right? Next, let's move on to some of your Python projects, which I thought, again, my assessment of things, right? This missing operators, where we have, it's a game where, it's up to us how complex we want to make it. And you really did it well. So I actually ran it. So you give a choice to people to essentially tell, let's say I want 3 blanks. Yes, I would like to, let's say, randomize the numbers. Now you pick up a question. The interesting bit was you were the, because the first time when we did it, I think you were amongst the very few students in that time. Now, of course, many have done it using multiplication. That complicates matters, right? Because you got to multiplication has a higher priority compared to, let's say, addition and subtraction, right? So,
Yeah.
in fact, the solution that I came up with later on in the as an enhancement idea is kind of similar to yours. I just kind of, use a list just like you had done. So again, algorithmically quite interesting, this one, right? The way you've done it, yeah?
Yeah. Looking back at this project, I
Yeah.
feel I could have used eval also.
Yeah, eval makes, eval can let you do lots of things, right? That's actually one of the bonus ideas I've done. So another student done that. So that's the thing with WiByte, right? That people will do different ideas and I try to consolidate them in that bonus ideas, right? So eval makes actually really allows a lot of possibilities with this.
Yes.
Yeah, good, very good. Then the project that I always show to students, okay, is this one. I think you
Taj
remember
Mahal, yeah.
Taj Mahal, right? Let me see if I can get this to. Okay, let's just run this. Let's run this on the output. I mean, it's like so beautifully done, right? It's the outcome is very nice, number one,
Yeah.
and the way the logic is formed, right? I mean, you got this very nicely defined functions. Without that, it's impossible. I mean, not impossible,
Yeah.
just way too much work and way too much repetitive work, right? So you kind of identified that, and I thought just looks amazing. I mean, I show it to everybody, and subsequently, a lot of students have done very, very interesting. So like there's a student who built an Eiffel Tower, for example, with similar ideas, right? So very nice. So this is something that and the whole thing comes out so beautifully, right? So again, your function for, let's say, an arc, a door, this and that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
all of that, right? So you can see in the code here, right? We'll move forward with your snake function, snake game. Okay,
Yeah.
so this hungry snake again is something which I thought was very unique because the way you made the snake move. It just so happens that I'm picking up projects which are more graphical.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that others are not good, but the way again you made the snake moves, I thought very unique, and the whole look and feel of this, let's say, this game with that grass and stuff and the
Yeah.
apple, I thought was very nice, right? So the snake movement was completely unique in this. I mean, it's totally different from what we have done in the class, right? Again,
This is a very interesting one because I wanted to try the same technique for the Scratch project.
we
But
did
there
the
was
snake.
the clone limit problem of 300
Right.
clones.
Right.
This one looks much more smooth.
Much
the
smooth,
movement.
right? So this game is very interesting to me because it's like it has this artistic element, but it also has this traveling salesman element, right?
Yes.
You can actually figure out if this guy has taken an optimal route given the foods available, right? And then, in fact, that's a pretty nice problem. That's an algorithmic problem to solve here, right? That what is optimal route in this? Not so obvious actually, right? And then I've also in one of the website I've also put this project where once you know the optimal route, you can guide the snake to go that way. So go pick up this food, go pick up that food. So I highlight that particular food and so on. So now let's look at one more project of yours, which is very, very memorable, is your Wordle project. Right now, Wordle is something we all play.
Yes.
Wordle has this very interesting problem that it is quite it's quite easy in some sense because the rules are clear, right? That green letter, yellow letter, or that let's say gray letter, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is when there's a yellow letter, sometimes repeated letters cause a problem, right? So I came up with a solution. What got me interested in your case, what got me, let's say, what stood out for your project is that your logic is completely different. Okay, so I really enjoyed this. In fact, I think I've already done that. I'm going to make a mention of this in the class notes. I think probably I've already done that, right? That look, there's that's one way to solve it, but here's another way, right? And the thing that I felt here is that you kind of anticipated the problem, or perhaps because you knew the problem exists, and hence you thought that way, probably, right? You want to throw some light on this if you remember what this was, yeah.
I think always when I try to do a project, I think of an alternate way to do it. In
Very
most
good.
of my Scratch projects, you can see that.
Yeah.
Because it's like using Legos and not building the set manual. It's building your own thing with it.
Very good.
This
No-
project, I think I used a different method compared to the original standard. It's also the same efficiency, but cleaner code.
Yeah, inner code. Yeah. The thing is this. I think pedagogically, that's so like from the sake of teaching, that is a more logical. Let's say direct flow of things, right? That's how
Yes.
you kind of. So it's like you approach the problem that way, run into a problem, then you think of a solution, right? Whereas here, it felt to me that you kind of anticipated, okay, this problem will occur, and I'll preempt that problem with my code. So cleaner for sure, right? And very nice. Yeah. So this is just a sampling of your projects. I completely appreciate this fact that you always try to do something different, and in that process our entire WiByte curriculum, our entire WiByte, let's say, program gets enriched. Because, ideas are multiplicative, right? Others are also going to look at it, right? So, and that's how we all learn from each other, right? So keep it up, Adarsh. Really, I mean, there are more. I'm just showing you for the sake of time, just a few more, right? Just a few. But there are really many more projects, you know them. They're on the website anyway, right? So keep programming. We have, I think, a pretty interesting, let's say, times ahead for you. So wish you all the very best for ZIO, and I'm going to list these projects as part of the video so people can also look at them.
Yes.
And in case there's any students who may be, let's say, interested to prepare for, I'll probably connect them to you as well, right? So that you can have a more, let's say, more pointed discussion with them. Okay. So wishing you all the very best, Adarsh. Keep it up, and looking forward to taking you further in this journey. We are, I think lots of still very interesting projects still to be done, right? And,
yes. Thank you, sir.
Sure, my pleasure. And take care. Okay. Bye bye.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
sir.
Bye. Bye.